Rain hammered against the cracked windows of the tiny apartment as Marie Washington counted the last of her coins on the kitchen table. $17.32. That was all that stood between her and complete disaster. Her 8-year-old son, Marcus, sat quietly in the corner doing homework by the light of a single lamp. The electricity bill was overdue again, and Marie knew the power company wouldn't wait much longer. She worked 2 jobs, cleaning offices downtown during the day and stocking shelves at the grocery store 3 nights a week. Her hands were raw and worn, testimony to years of scrubbing floors and lifting boxes. But it was never enough. The rent was due in 5 days, and she was still $200 short. Her old car had broken down last month, forcing her to take 3 buses just to get to work. Every day felt like climbing a mountain with weights tied to her ankles. That Thursday evening, Marie finished her shift at the grocery store and stepped out into a downpour. The bus wouldn't come for another 40 minutes, and she stood under the thin awning, shivering in her worn jacket. The street was nearly empty, just a few cars passing by with their headlights cutting through the rain. Then she heard it. A deep rumbling sound that grew louder, followed by a sputter and silence. A motorcycle coasted to a stop about 20 feet from where she stood. The rider, a large man in a leather vest covered with patches, climbed off and examined his bike with obvious frustration. He kicked the starter several times, but the engine wouldn't turn over. Rain soaked through his clothes as he pulled out his phone, stared at the screen, then shook his head. Dead battery. Marie watched him for a moment, her instincts telling her to stay put, to mind her own business. She'd been taught to be careful, especially in this neighborhood at night. But something in the way the man stood there, shoulders slumped in defeat, touched her heart. She thought of all the times she'd felt that same crushing helplessness. She walked toward him, her shoes splashing through puddles. "Excuse me, are you okay?" The biker turned, surprised. He was older than she'd first thought, maybe in his 50s, with a gray beard and kind eyes. "Bike died on me. Phone's dead too. Just my luck tonight." "There's a pay phone inside the store," Marie said, pointing behind her. "It still works." "I don't have any change," he admitted, embarrassment coloring his face. Marie reached into her pocket and pulled out a quarter. She held it out to him, this piece of her precious $17. He looked at the coin, then at her worn clothes and tired face, and seemed to understand what that quarter meant. "I can't take your money," he said softly. "It's just a quarter," Marie replied. "We all need help sometimes." He took the coin, his large hand gentle. "What's your name?" "Marie Washington." "I'm Jack. Jack Morrison." He looked at her for a long moment. "You just gave me something more than a quarter, Marie. Thank you." Jack made his call while Marie waited for her bus. A tow truck would come in an hour. When Marie's bus arrived, Jack waved to her through the rain. She waved back and climbed aboard, already forgetting about the encounter. She had bigger problems waiting at home. The eviction notice tucked in her purse felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. She had 1 week to come up with the money or she and Marcus would be on the street. That night, Marie lay awake listening to the rain, wondering how she would tell her son they might lose their home. Marcus had already lost so much. His father had left before he was born, and they'd been struggling ever since. She'd worked so hard to give him stability, to keep a roof over his head. The thought of failing him made her chest tight with fear. She didn't know that across town, Jack Morrison sat in his garage, staring at the quarter Marie had given him. He turned it over and over in his calloused fingers, thinking about the woman who had so little but gave anyway. He thought about kindness and compassion, about the kind of person who stops to help a stranger in the rain. And he made a decision that would change everything. Friday morning arrived gray and cold. Marie got Marcus ready for school, packing him a lunch of peanut butter sandwiches and an apple she'd saved from her employee discount at the grocery store. He hugged her tight before running to catch the school bus, his backpack bouncing against his small shoulders. She watched him go, her heart aching with love and worry. At work, Marie moved through her cleaning routine like a machine. She scrubbed toilets, emptied trash cans, and mopped floors in the downtown office building where she'd worked for 3 years. Her supervisor, Mrs. Chen, was kind but could only give her so many hours. Budget cuts meant fewer shifts, less money. Marie had asked for extra work, even begged, but there was nothing available. During her lunch break, Marie sat in the building's lobby and pulled out the eviction notice. 7 days. She'd called every charity organization she could find, filled out applications for assistance programs, but the waiting lists were months long. She'd even considered a payday loan, but the interest rates were predatory, designed to trap people like her in endless debt. Her phone buzzed. It was Marcus's school. Her stomach dropped. She answered with trembling hands. Ms. Washington, this is Principal Davies. Marcus is fine, but we need to discuss his lunch account. It's overdrawn, and unfortunately, we can't continue providing meals without payment. Marie closed her eyes. Another bill she couldn't pay. How much do I owe? $63 for this semester. $63 might as well have been $6,000. I'll figure something out, Marie whispered. I understand times are tough, Principal Davies said gently. We have a fund for families in need. Let me see what I can do. After work, Marie took her 3 buses home, each ride feeling longer than the last. She walked the final 2 blocks to her apartment building, a rundown structure with peeling paint and broken railings. Home. For now. Meanwhile, across the city, Jack Morrison stood in a warehouse surrounded by motorcycles and men in leather vests. The Brotherhood, they called themselves. They weren't a gang, despite what people might think. They were veterans, factory workers, teachers, and firefighters who shared a love of riding and a commitment to helping their community. Jack had called an emergency meeting. 50 men gathered around, curious about the urgency. Jack rarely called these meetings unless something important was happening. Brothers, Jack began, his voice carrying through the space. Last night, I broke down in the rain. My bike died, my phone was dead, and I was stuck. A woman stopped to help me. She gave me her last quarter so I could make a call. Some of the men nodded, understanding the significance of the gesture. I did some research, Jack continued. Marie Washington. Single mother. Works 2 jobs. She's about to be evicted from her apartment. She's got a kid, 8 years old. She's been fighting to survive, and she's losing. He paused, letting that sink in. She helped me when she had every reason not to. When she had nothing to spare. That's the kind of person worth helping. Tommy, a mechanic with arms covered in tattoos, spoke up. What are you thinking, Jack? I'm thinking we show her what the Brotherhood is really about. I'm thinking we do something that matters. The room erupted in agreement. These men knew hardship. Many of them had struggled themselves, had been helped by others when they needed it most. They understood the power of community, of people standing together. Jack laid out his plan. They would gather donations, not just money but furniture, clothes, food, whatever Marie and Marcus needed. They would fix anything broken in her apartment. They would make sure her rent was paid and that she had a buffer, some breathing room to get ahead instead of constantly falling behind. But here's the thing, Jack said. We do this right. We don't overwhelm her. We don't make her feel like charity. We do this with respect, with dignity. We show her that her kindness mattered, that it created ripples. The men spent hours organizing. Phone calls were made. Social media posts went up in private groups. By midnight, the response was overwhelming. Not just from the Brotherhood, but from their families, friends, and community members who heard the story and wanted to help. Money poured in. A furniture store owner offered a new bed for Marcus. A landlord offered to waive 3 months of rent. A grocery store pledged weekly food deliveries. Jack looked at the growing list of donations and felt something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. Pure, powerful hope. Saturday morning, Marie woke to another gray day. She'd barely slept, her mind spinning with impossible calculations. How could she make $200 appear out of thin air? She'd already sold everything worth selling. There was nothing left. She made Marcus breakfast, watching him eat his cereal with the careful attention only a mother facing homelessness could have. Every moment felt precious, possibly numbered. After breakfast, Marcus settled in to watch cartoons, oblivious to the storm gathering around them. Marie's phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, afraid it might be a creditor, but something made her pick up. Is this Marie Washington? A man's voice asked. Yes, who's calling? My name is Jack Morrison. We met Thursday night. You gave me a quarter in the rain. Marie's mind struggled to place the name, then remembered. The biker with the broken-down motorcycle. I remember, she said cautiously. Is everything okay with your bike? The bike's fine, Jack replied. But I've been thinking about you. About your kindness. I did something, Marie, and I hope you'll forgive me for overstepping. I made some calls, talked to some people. We want to help you. Marie's defenses went up immediately. I don't need charity. It's not charity, Jack said firmly. It's community. It's people helping people. You helped me when you had nothing. Let us return the favor. I appreciate the thought, but... Marie, Jack interrupted gently. Tomorrow morning, some friends of mine are going to stop by your place. Just let us help. Please. Sunday morning broke with unexpected sunshine, the first clear day in a week. Marie stood at her kitchen window, coffee cup in hand, watching the street below. She'd barely slept again, Jack's phone call playing on repeat in her mind. Part of her hoped he would forget, that whatever he'd planned would fall through. She wasn't comfortable accepting help, even when she desperately needed it. Pride was sometimes all a person had left. Marcus was still asleep, his small body curled under blankets on the air mattress they used because his bed frame had broken months ago. Marie had promised him a real bed for his birthday, but that seemed like an impossible dream now. Everything seemed impossible. At exactly 9 o'clock, she heard it. A low rumble that started faint and grew steadily louder. Marie's first thought was thunder, but the sound was different. Rhythmic. Mechanical. She looked out the window and froze. Motorcycles. Dozens of them, riding down her street in formation. The lead rider wore a leather vest covered in patches, and Marie recognized him immediately. Jack Morrison. Behind him came more bikes, then more, until the entire street was filled with them. Neighbors stepped out onto porches and balconies, watching the spectacle with amazement and confusion. Marie's heart pounded as the bikes parked along both sides of the street. She counted 50, then 100, then lost count entirely. Men and women dismounted, many wearing matching vests that identified them as the Brotherhood. But there were others too, regular people in regular clothes, carrying boxes and bags. A knock at her door made her jump. She stood paralyzed for a moment before Marcus called out from the bedroom. "Mom, what's that noise?" She opened the door to find Jack Morrison standing there with a gentle smile. Behind him, the stairwell was filled with people waiting patiently. "Good morning, Marie," Jack said. "I brought some friends. I hope that's okay." Marie's throat was too tight to speak. She nodded, tears already forming in her eyes. "We're going to make today a good day," Jack continued. "But first, I need you to meet someone." He stepped aside, and a woman came forward. She was middle-aged with kind eyes and wore a vest that marked her as part of the Brotherhood. "Marie, this is my wife, Susan. She's organized the household items." Susan took Marie's hands in hers. "We're not here to invade or take over. We're here because you showed kindness when it cost you something. That matters. You matter." Marcus emerged from the bedroom, his eyes wide as he saw the crowd. "Mom, what's happening?" Before Marie could answer, a young man stepped forward holding a large wrapped box. "Hey, buddy. What's your name?" "Marcus," the boy replied shyly. "Well, Marcus, I'm Danny. I heard you needed a new bed. This one's pretty cool. Want to see it?" The floodgates opened. People streamed into the apartment in an organized flow. Men carried in furniture while women unpacked boxes of food in the kitchen. Someone had measured the apartment beforehand because everything fit perfectly. A proper bed frame and mattress replaced Marcus's air mattress. A comfortable couch took the place of the worn-out futon Marie had salvaged from the curb years ago. Marie stood in the center of her living room, overwhelmed, as her entire life transformed around her. A team painted the walls, covering the water stains and peeling patches. An electrician fixed the faulty wiring that had been sparking for months. A plumber repaired the leaky sink she'd been catching drips from in a bucket. Jack appeared at her elbow. "Come with me for a minute." He led her outside where more people were unloading trucks. Tables had been set up on the sidewalk, covered with clothes sorted by size, shoes, school supplies, and toys. The entire neighborhood had come out to watch, and some were joining in, adding their own contributions to the pile. "This is for you and Marcus," Jack explained. "Take what you need. There's no judgment here." A woman approached carrying a grocery bag. "I'm Rebecca. I live 3 blocks over. I heard what you did for Jack, and I just wanted to say thank you for being that kind of person. My kids grew out of these clothes last month. They're practically new." Another person came forward, then another. Each had a story, each wanted to contribute. Marie realized that this wasn't just about the Brotherhood. Jack had sparked something larger, a reminder of what community could be when people chose kindness over indifference. A little girl about Marcus's age shyly approached him. "Want to play? I brought my ball." Marcus looked at his mother, who nodded through her tears. He ran off with the girl, their laughter cutting through the rumble of motorcycle engines and adult conversation. The sound of her son's joy broke something open in Marie's chest. When was the last time she'd heard him laugh like that? Tommy, the mechanic Marie had seen in Jack's warehouse, approached with a clipboard. "Marie, We need to talk about your transportation situation. I heard your car died. I can't afford a car, Marie said quickly. The buses work fine. 3 buses, 2 hours each way to work, Tommy corrected. That's 4 hours a day you could be spending with your son. We've got a car for you. Nothing fancy, but it runs good. I checked it myself. I can't accept a car, Marie protested. It's not a gift, Tommy explained. It's a loan. You pay it forward someday when you're back on your feet. You help someone else who needs it. That's how this works. Jack rejoined them. Marie, there's something else. Come inside. Back in her apartment, now transformed with fresh paint and new furniture, Jack handed her an envelope. Open it. Inside was a check. Marie's hands shook as she read the amount. $5,000. This covers your back rent, 3 months ahead, utilities, Marcus's school lunch account, and leaves you with some emergency money, Jack explained. It's from everyone who contributed. The Brotherhood, their families, people from the community who heard your story. Marie couldn't hold back anymore. She sank onto her new couch and sobbed. Susan sat beside her, rubbing her back while Marie cried years of stress and fear and exhaustion into her hands. Jack knelt in front of her, waiting until she could look at him. Why? Marie finally asked. Why would you do all this for someone you don't even know? Jack smiled. Because you gave your last quarter to a stranger in the rain. Because kindness is rare and precious, and it deserves to be honored. Because you're raising a good boy on your own, working yourself to the bone, and you never asked for help even though you needed it. Because you represent everything good that still exists in this world, and good deserves to be protected and celebrated. As the afternoon sun climbed higher, the transformation of Marie's apartment continued. In the kitchen, women organized donated food into the newly cleaned cabinets while sharing recipes and phone numbers. Someone had brought a slow cooker and was preparing a meal large enough to feed everyone who'd come to help. The smell of cooking filled the apartment, warm and welcoming. Marcus had made a dozen new friends among the children who'd come with their parents. They played in the small courtyard behind the building, their shouts and laughter drawing out other neighborhood kids who quickly joined the impromptu party. Someone had brought a basketball, and an informal game started. An older biker named Carlos, who walked with a limp from an old injury, refereed with good-natured authority. Marie moved through her own apartment like a stranger, touching the new curtains, running her hand along the smooth surface of the kitchen table that had replaced her wobbly card table. Every few minutes, someone would approach with another gift, another gesture of kindness. A woman brought homemade blankets. A man installed child-proof locks on the cabinets. A teacher from Marcus's school appeared with a box of books and a promise to help with tutoring if needed. Jack found Marie on the small balcony, taking a moment away from the crowd. He joined her, leaning against the railing. Overwhelmed? He asked. That doesn't begin to cover it, Marie replied. I keep thinking I'm going to wake up and this will all be a dream. It's real, Jack assured her. And it's permanent. You're not going to lose this place, Marie. You're stable now. But why? Marie asked again, still struggling to understand. 1 quarter doesn't deserve all this. Jack was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. 10 years ago, I was where you are now. Maybe worse. I was a veteran, couldn't hold down a job because of PTSD, drinking too much, about to lose everything. I had a daughter, Emily. She was 9. Marie turned to look at him, seeing the pain in his eyes. One night, I was sitting in my truck in a parking lot, seriously considering ending it all. I had a bottle and a gun, and I couldn't see any way forward. Then a woman knocked on my window. She was a waitress from the diner across the lot, taking her break. She'd seen me sitting there for hours. Jack's voice grew thick with emotion. She sat with me. Didn't judge, didn't lecture. Just sat there and talked to me like I was a human being worth saving. She called a veterans crisis line for me, waited until someone came. She probably saved my life that night. What happened to her? Marie asked softly. I never saw her again. I went to the diner a week later to thank her, but she'd quit. Moved away. I never got to tell her what she did for me, how she changed everything. I got help, got clean, rebuilt my life. But I always carried that regret, that I never got to pay her back. Understanding dawned on Marie's face. When you gave me that quarter, when you stopped to help even though you were struggling yourself, I saw her, Jack continued. I saw that same spirit, that same willingness to see another person's humanity even when the world tells you to look away. This isn't about the quarter, Marie. It's about who you are. And it's my chance to do what I never got to do for that waitress. To say thank you. To show you that your kindness matters. Marie wiped tears from her cheeks. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. Just accept it. Let people help. And someday, when you're on your feet and you see someone struggling, you do the same thing. That's how we change the world, Marie. One act of kindness at a time. Inside, Susan had organized the volunteers into a cleaning crew for the building's common areas. The landlord, initially suspicious of the large gathering, had been won over when Jack explained what was happening. He'd offered to make repairs throughout the building if the Brotherhood provided the labor. By late afternoon, broken railings were fixed, the lobby was painted, and the building looked better than it had in years. Other tenants, inspired by the generosity, began helping each other. An elderly man on the first floor who'd been too proud to ask for help received new groceries. A young couple with a newborn got a crib and baby supplies. The entire building seemed to come alive with possibility and community. Marie watched from her window as neighbors who'd barely spoken to each other for years now chatted and laughed together. Children played without fear. The street that had felt dangerous and cold that morning now buzzed with warmth and connection. Marcus burst into the apartment, his face flushed with excitement. Mom. Carla says he used to be a teacher and he'll help me with math. And Jenny's mom says I can come to their house after school if you're working. And look. He held up a new basketball. Danny gave me this and is going to teach me to play. Marie pulled her son into a hug, holding him tight. This was what she'd been fighting for all along. Not just survival, but the chance for Marcus to be a child, to have friends and opportunities and joy. She'd carried that burden alone for so long, thinking she had to be everything for him. Now she understood that letting others help wasn't weakness. It was wisdom. As evening approached, someone had set up a grill on the street. The meal prepared in Marie's kitchen was brought down and shared with everyone. More neighbors joined, drawn by the smell of food and the sound of celebration. Long tables appeared from somewhere, chairs borrowed from nearby apartments. An impromptu block party emerged, the kind of gathering this neighborhood hadn't seen in years. Jack stood and raised his glass of soda. I want to make a toast, he announced, his voice carrying over the crowd. To Marie Washington, who reminded us all what it means to be human. Who showed kindness when she had every reason not to. And to all of you who came together today to show her that kindness creates ripples. We're not just a group of bikers or neighbors or strangers anymore. We're a community. And this is just the beginning. The crowd erupted in cheers. Marie stood beside Jack, Marcus at her side, surrounded by hundreds of people who'd become family in a single day. She thought about her journey, about all the times she'd felt alone and forgotten. About the nights she'd cried herself to sleep worrying about the future. Those fears seemed distant now, replaced by something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. 3 months later, on a crisp February morning, Marie stood in the parking lot of the community center that the Brotherhood had helped establish in her neighborhood. She wore business casual clothes, donated by Susan, and carried herself with a confidence that would have seemed impossible last November. The check Jack had given her had provided stability, but something more important had emerged from that extraordinary Sunday. Purpose. The community center had been an abandoned warehouse until Jack and his Brotherhood, along with dozens of volunteers, had transformed it. Now it housed a food bank, a clothing exchange, a tutoring program, and a job training center. Marie had been hired as the assistant director, using her intimate knowledge of struggle to help others navigate their own hardships. Marcus thrived at school now that he wasn't worried about lunch money or seeing his mother stressed every evening. His grades had improved dramatically, and he joined the basketball team. Carlos kept his promise about math tutoring, and the two had formed an unlikely friendship. The elderly biker had found new purpose in teaching, and Marcus had found a grandfather figure he'd never had. Marie's mornings now included greeting people as they arrived at the center. Mrs. Chen, her old supervisor, had been so impressed by the Brotherhood's work that she'd gotten her company to sponsor the center with monthly donations. Other businesses followed suit. The community that had seemed broken and disconnected 3 months ago now worked together with remarkable coordination. Tommy had kept his word about the car being a loan, not a gift. Marie made small monthly payments into a fund that would eventually help another family get transportation. She'd cut her commute from 4 hours to 40 minutes, giving her precious time with Marcus and energy to invest in the center. But the most profound change was internal. Marie no longer felt invisible. She'd spent years believing she had to handle everything alone, that asking for help was admitting defeat. Now she understood that community was strength, that vulnerability was courage, and that accepting help allowed others to experience the joy of giving. On this particular morning, she was preparing for a special event. The Brotherhood was hosting their first community dinner, an evening meant to celebrate the transformations that had occurred and to recruit more volunteers for expanding programs. Local news had picked up the story, and the reporter who'd interviewed Marie kept using the word miracle. But Marie knew better. It wasn't a miracle. It was people choosing kindness over indifference, connection over isolation. It was intentional, difficult, and beautiful. Jack arrived early, as he always did. He'd become a regular presence at the center, and he and Marie had developed a deep friendship built on mutual respect and shared purpose. Susan often joked that Jack had found his true calling in community organizing, and she wasn't wrong. "Ready for tonight?" Jack asked, helping Marie arrange chairs in the main hall. "Nervous," Marie admitted. "I'm supposed to give a speech. Me, speaking in front of 100 people." "You'll be great," Jack assured her. "Just tell your truth. That's all anyone needs to hear." That evening, the center filled beyond capacity. Brotherhood members mingled with neighborhood residents, business owners, teachers, and families who'd been helped by the programs. Local politicians attended, impressed by the grassroots success. The mayor himself had called, asking to meet with Jack about replicating the model in other neighborhoods. Marcus sat in the front row with his friends, wearing a new shirt he'd picked out himself. He waved at his mother, pride evident on his young face. Marie waved back, her heart so full she thought it might burst. When it was time for her speech, Marie approached the microphone with shaking hands. She looked out at the crowd and saw so many familiar faces. People who'd helped her. People she'd helped in return. People who'd become family. 3 months ago, she began, her voice steadier than expected, I was about to lose everything. I was working 2 jobs, barely sleeping, and still couldn't make ends meet. I felt invisible, like no matter how hard I worked, it would never be enough. Then one rainy night, I did something small. I gave a quarter to a stranger who needed help making a phone call. She found Jack in the crowd. He smiled, encouraging her to continue. That quarter changed my life, but not because of its value. It changed my life because it reminded someone that kindness exists, that people can choose to help each other even when it's hard. Jack Morrison took that small act and multiplied it into something extraordinary. But here's what I've learned since that Sunday when 499 bikers showed up at my apartment. Marie paused, gathering her thoughts. The real miracle wasn't the money or the furniture or even this beautiful center we're standing in. The real miracle was remembering that we're not alone. That we're stronger together. That every single person in this room has the power to change someone's life with a simple choice to care. She gestured to the programs listed on banners around the room. This center has helped 73 families in 3 months. We've provided food, clothing, job training, and tutoring. We've connected people with resources they didn't know existed. We've created a community where there was only isolation. But none of that happened because of one person. It happened because hundreds of people decided that kindness matters more than convenience. The room was silent, everyone hanging on her words. I stand here tonight not just as someone who was helped, but as someone who's learned to help others. I've learned that accepting help isn't weakness, it's trust. I've learned that giving help isn't charity, it's investment in our collective humanity. And I've learned that the smallest acts, like giving away your last quarter, can create ripples that change entire communities. Marie's voice grew stronger, more confident. So I want to challenge everyone here tonight. Look around. Really see the people in this room. See the single mother working 3 jobs. See the veteran struggling with invisible wounds. See the kid who needs a mentor. See the elderly person who needs company. See the human being who just needs someone to notice they exist. Then do something about it. It doesn't have to be big. It can be as simple as a quarter, a smile, a moment of your time. But do something. She looked directly at Jack. Jack gave me back my life. But more than that, he gave me back my purpose. He showed me that I matter. That my struggles weren't invisible. That my humanity was worth celebrating. Now I get to do the same for others. And that's not a miracle. That's just what happens when we choose love over fear, connection over isolation, community over individualism. The applause started slowly, then built into a standing ovation. Marcus ran to his mother, hugging her tight. Marie held her son, tears streaming down her face, surrounded by people who'd become family through shared purpose and intentional kindness. After the speeches, the dinner, and the celebration, Marie stood outside the center watching people leave. Many exchanged phone numbers, making plans to volunteer. She saw connections forming, relationships beginning. The work would continue tomorrow and every day after that. Jack joined her, 2 cups of coffee in hand. He offered one to Marie, and they stood in comfortable silence, watching their community thrive. "You know what the best part is?" Marie finally said. "What's that?" "This story doesn't end with me. Every person we help has the potential to help someone else. Every act of kindness creates new possibilities. That woman you told me about, the waitress who saved your life? She's here too, in every person who chooses to care. Her legacy lives on in everything we do." Jack nodded, understanding completely. "The Brotherhood is opening 2 more centers in other neighborhoods," he said. "We need someone to train the staff. Someone who understands what it's like to struggle and to be helped. Someone who can teach others how to serve with dignity and respect." Marie looked at him, surprised. "You're offering me a job?" "I'm offering you a career. A chance to take what you've learned and share it with the world. What do you say?" Marie thought about her journey from that rainy night to this moment. She thought about her son sleeping peacefully, no longer worried about where they'd live. She thought about the family she'd helped at the center, the way their eyes lit up when they realized someone cared. She thought about the power of community and the ripple effect of kindness. "I say yes," Marie replied. 1,000 times yes. As they stood there planning the future, a young woman approached hesitantly. She was dressed in worn clothes, her face tired and scared. "Excuse me," she said quietly. "I heard you help people here. I just lost my job and my landlord is evicting me. I have 2 kids and nowhere to go. Can you help?" Marie and Jack exchanged a knowing look. The cycle continued. The ripples spread wider. Marie took the woman's hand gently. "What's your name?" "Teresa," the woman answered, tears threatening to fall. "Teresa, I'm Marie. Come inside where it's warm. Let's talk about what you need. You're not alone anymore. We're going to help you, just like someone helped me. And someday, you'll help someone else. That's how we change the world." As they walked into the center together, Marie realized the profound truth that Jack had taught her. One act of kindness, no matter how small, could create infinite possibilities. A quarter given in the rain had become a movement. A moment of compassion had become a community. A choice to care had become a legacy. And it all started because one tired, struggling woman decided that a stranger's need mattered more than her own comfort. That simple choice had transformed not just her life, but the lives of hundreds of others. It had reminded an entire neighborhood that humanity still existed, that people could choose connection over isolation. The story didn't end that night. It continued in every person who chose kindness, in every act of compassion, in every moment someone decided that another person's dignity mattered. The 499 bikers who gathered outside Marie's house that Sunday morning weren't the end of the story. They were just the beginning.